All right, hello everybody. Welcome to tonight's stream. Sorry it's a little bit late. Got off work and then had to go get myself some potato soup to eat before the stream, so had to get that down to hatch before I came here. That way I wasn't eating on stream. So let's see. I'm a little bit late, so I haven't gotten all my stuff set yet. But I believe I will be critiquing Sanjana and her ideas. And then somebody wanted me to take a look at a walk cycle. So let me double check and make sure my screen share is set up correctly. Also, I have a new lighting setup, so hopefully it looks a little more professional, but we'll see how long I can keep it because the light's kind of bright. But I like it. I think it looks a lot better, so. Okay, let's see. Pantomime ideas. I read through this, and then let me make sure I downloaded the thing that I needed. Downloads. Cool. Okay, so let's transition. Boom. Okay, can y'all see my screen okay? I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, I'll leave it. Cool. Okay, so Sanjana is about to do a cartoony shot, and so she's going through ideas of what she wants to do for the cartoony shot. She has 3 different ones, and then we're going to go over her pantomime shot. She had a little mishap with it crashing, and we're going to see if we can salvage it or if it's worth going back and reanimating or just moving on to the next thing. So I'll go ahead and start with this one. Let me watch. So for me personally with pantomime shots, this is a overall note that I would give to anyone is I'm not a big fan of pantomime shots. Not that they can't be amazing. There's very, very few pantomime shots that I see that I'm like, oh, that was amazing. That was, the best pantomime shot I've ever seen. This one is good. I like the idea. I think it's fun, and I think it serves its purpose in the AM curriculum of teaching you how to do an emotion change, which is good, and that's what it's kind of meant for. I don't see hardly any pantomime shots that I think should belong on a reel just because, one, in class 4, you only have 4 weeks, so you're not able to set a solid enough base for the shot. And 2, you're stuck to start in one emotion, go into another emotion. And it is what it is. It's a test. It's not really let me showcase my skills as an animator. And it's more of let me do this thing so I can learn. So by definition, pantomime assignments, I don't find super duper, I don't find them super duper like great reel shots very often. Sometimes people just have like the best idea I've ever seen and they just knock it out of the park and they put it on their reel. I mean, I know a few guys that put their class 2 shot on their reel and got offers from feature studios, but most people aren't going to do that. So my recommendation is, especially because it crashed, if you had the final version from class 4 and you could put a week in, I might suggest doing that, but making it one of the first shots you take off of your reel when you update new shots. But since it's back into basically blocking, I would suggest just moving on to something new, because you're at this stage in your animation journey, you're always going to be improving leaps and bounds every class. So going back to polish up this shot is kind of counterintuitive because you've already improved from here and you already know how to do better ideas, better blocking, better splining, better shot setup. Hello, Animation Addict. You already know how to do all of those things better, so you might as well just put a little extra time in and do a new shot, then go back to this shot, if that makes sense. So that would be my suggestion, because I think in a reasonable amount of time extra, you could make a shot that's twice as good as this one, just because you've learned. Hello, Ben. And also another thing is there's a very harsh time constraint with AM assignments. So like you have 210 frames. Ideally, short shots are good. Short shots are better because it's less animation, but a lot of times in order to do a really, really, really good idea, you need a little more time than 200 frames to really sell an amazing idea, especially with the constraints that a pantomime shot gives you. So yeah, that's another thing to think about. So let's go into the cartoony shots. Let's see. Late for work, rig jewels. Gets out of bed, sits up, ring, ring. Ring off, alarm off screen, looks at alarm. Alarm. Brushes teeth. So I guess my only question about this shot, Sanjana, is why is he coming back on screen over here? Because I understand, like, he goes off screen to get dressed. He comes back this way to get his toothbrush. He comes back this way as he's putting on his shoes. But why is he coming back screen left and then turning around and coming screen right? I originally thought that, like, maybe he's brushing his teeth and putting on his shoes, and he, you know, like you said, crashes off screen, and the whole time his briefcase is laying on the bed, right? Very, very clear. Oh, he needs to get the briefcase. So he goes off screen, he crashes, and then he comes sliding back in, grabs the briefcase, side turns, and runs out. That's what I originally thought, and I think that could be really fun. But then I realized that there's no briefcase sitting there. So I'm curious what you had in mind for this frame in particular. Is there any reason for him sliding on screen? Like, what is his objective on sliding on screen? Because if he's off screen right, and then he ends up running towards camera off screen right again, it's going to be a little confusing, I think, as to why he didn't just stay off screen, as to why he runs in screen left and then turns around and runs back screen right, if that makes sense. So what I would do, which it doesn't change your idea at all, really, other than I think it would be really fun if maybe his suitcase, briefcase, whatever, is just sitting here at the bottom edge of the bed. Like maybe he dropped it there before bed. He could forget which side the door is, like you're saying, Logan, but my concern with that is that that's not clear. Like, without any dialogue or signage or anything like that, nothing's going to tell us, oh, he forgot which side the door was. So unless we assume that, we're not going to know, which that's what you try not to do within a shot is clarity, right? And that's something that's, you know, very pounded into you with Previs, which is what I've been doing for the past month, before I head over to my new studio next week. But with Previs, you're only working with cameras and you're only working with faceless cameras, and you're having to make sure everything's clear for the client so that they can go and take that and shoot a movie with it. And so coming in one side of screen, off one side of screen, all of those things is what you use to tell a story. And you have to be very, very clear with those, or else the audience is not going to read that. So yeah, I think that would be the best option. Even if he's running towards screen, it begs the question of, if he's off screen right, why does he run screen left, turn, and then run towards the screen? Why doesn't he go from screen right towards the screen? So I think the easiest solution would be just having this here. And it also, for me, kind of sets up a gag of it's right here in the audience's view the whole time. And he never notices it until the end. And it's kind of one of those things where it builds it up in the audience's eye. And then you get the payoff when the character in the shot notices it. So he wakes up and it's here and you notice it because it's nice in frame. It's here, you notice it. You're like, this guy doesn't even see the briefcase. He comes off, crashes, runs in, grabs it, and then runs out. So I think it just adds also a little extra bit of entertainment value to the shot. Other than that, I think the idea is great. I think you could use Jules. I think he could work very well. For me personally, I might look into using another rig that has a little more simple face rig, because Jules is kind of designed for close-up acting shots, medium acting shots, and his facial controls aren't the best in my opinion. I think they could work. I wouldn't say as simple as Stewart, because his are a little too simple. Like, if you want to keep it with AM rigs because, you know, you want to try to get for the showcase or something like that, I would stick with AM rigs. And if that's the case, probably use Jules, because I think he would be the best option out of all the AM rigs. But if you wanted, like, something that was a more designed rig for this shot, like, I know... I'm trying to think of a good rig. Something that's a body mechanics rig that has enough facial controls that you can get what you need without having to work super hard. Because Jules has a lot of controls and you have to work really, really hard to get his face to be appealing. And I feel like, okay, if you don't mind using non-AM rigs, I might look around, because I know there's a fair amount of good, like, pantomime rigs. Like, he wouldn't work, but the Twigs rig, the cowboy, Aang would be really good. I think Aang would be a perfect rig for this shot. You might have to make him look a little bit older, but him, in my opinion, he has a better body design for a body mechanics shot and cartoony, because he's built more like a body mechanics rig, which means it'll be way easier to get those nice appealing shapes, as opposed to Jules, who in my opinion has kind of a clunky body. And then he has a extremely expressive, but also simple face rig. So in a wide out shot where you're far away and you're just trying to get a nice, cool face pose here, you don't want to have to sculpt and craft and bend his face to make it appealing. You just want to slap on a good expression and have it look good and animate between them. So yeah, if I were you, I would use Aang, because I think he would be a way better option for this shot. And I think it would be cool because, you know, I haven't seen a ton of cartoony shots with the Aang rig, and I think that would be super fun. So that would be my opinion for this shot. Let me look at these two, and then I'll figure out which one I like best. So chop, 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 chop. Okay, so my thoughts for these two shots. This one I think is cool. I think you have some fun ideas in it. I think you might need just a little bit of context to the shot in order for it to be better than your first shot. Like, I think your first shot's idea is very clear in the setup and payoff of he sits up and he's tired. That's his current state. The alarm rings, and immediately you see what his objective is. His objective is, I have to go to work. And the reason is apparent because we can all identify with that reason of we're going to get fired if we're late for work. So you immediately, within the first 2 frames of the shot, 3 frames of the shot, you see his current state of mind, his current position, which is in bed, and his objective, which is, I have to get to work because I'm going to be fired. And then the rest of the shot is just you making him fulfill that objective. This shot, I know that he's making soup because he's a chef, but I don't know what his objective is, right? So for example, if this girl here, if she's a critic, like Ratatouille, and she's going to be judging his food and she's going to rate the restaurant, his entire life's work based off of the soup, now we have a clear objective that's going to define this entire action. If this is his girlfriend or potential love interest, he's going to have an entirely different motivation. He's going to be like, oh, I want to make the best thing ever because I want to impress this girl. I want to ask her out, whatever. Or, you know, if it's just a regular old customer, then he's going to have an entirely different objective for this shot. And that's what I think in my mind he's missing. I think the actions you have are good, but there's no objective like there is in the first shot. I think the first shot has a really clear objective. I don't think this one is super clear in what his objective is. I mean, even if you were to add to the shot, like just one frame before it, of maybe he's like, maybe it's one of those kitchens where like it's relatively close to where the people are eating, and he looks over and he sees that she's like getting upset because it's taking a long time to make the food, right? If you can sell that, oh, she's getting frustrated because she wants her food, and then he responds to that by saying, oh shoot, I need to make this food really quick and get her soup. And so then you go into this. Now everything is a lot more clear what his objective is, which is, I need to make this soup lightning quick so that she can eat her food so that she doesn't leave, right? Keeping customer morale up. So then it makes more sense of, oh, chopping vegetables, super cartoony, super quick, throw it in the pot, cook it all up, get it ready. He brings it out. Maybe she's like annoyed, bored, and then he brings it out and she's like, oh, yummy. And then she takes it and she's like, yay. Right? Then you have an objective to the shot. So if you went with this shot, I would say make sure you have a very clear objective. But as of right now, between these two, I would still go with the second one. I would still go with the first one because I think it's way more clear. And then for the third one, I think this one is the weakest idea. Just for the fact that I've seen several people try to use Stan for the cartoony workshop. And personally, Stan just isn't, in my opinion, rigged well enough. Yeah, exactly, Ben. Something like that could work. But I don't think Stan's, specifically his shoulders, were rigged well enough to get the clean, cartoony, nice shapes through the body that, I mean, like this. Like, this is super cartoony, super dynamic pose. I don't think you could get that with Stan, just because you try to translate, move, rotate his shoulders, and they just break and they become incredibly unappealing. So I would, just on the fact that I don't like Stan, would say do the other two ideas. But if you were to really want to do this idea, I think the only thing you would need to change is you would need to add a little bit of context as to why is he buying the flowers? Because again, I like the ideas you have in here of the actions, motions, cartoony, whatever. why is he buying the flowers and where is he going? Like, I don't know where he's going right now, and I don't know why he's buying the flowers. And so nothing within the shot really matters to me, because if he just wanted to take a couple sniffs of these flowers, I really don't care if he drops them or if they get hit on the swinging thing or the skateboard, or he trips on the banana. I really don't care because I don't know where he's going. If, you know, what I'm guessing, which I don't know, is if he's buying the flowers to give to a girl. If we can make that clear, if I can understand, wear a tux. Okay, so if he's wearing a tux, that's a little more clear. And it's more about, oh, he doesn't need to get dirty. He doesn't need to ruin the flowers. That makes it a little more clear. My other thing is, I don't think he should. So if your idea is, so like going to a wedding or something, yeah. So that clears that up. I think that makes this first part more clear. But if his objective is, okay, I need to keep myself in pristine condition, and I cannot mess up my suit or my flowers, for two reasons, I think you need to remove him picking up the banana and putting it in the trash. Because the one is, it's going to make this shot incredibly long. Like, already just this part, moving past the banana and getting hit or accidentally falls in, that's going to be a good 200-300 frame shot. Adding in this beat of him picking up the banana and throwing it in the trash can, I feel like that's going to add another 50 to 60 frames. And it really doesn't tell us about the character, right? Because you're trying to sell, he's doing whatever it takes not to get dirty. And so if it was me and I was trying not to get dirty and I saw banana peel, I was like, I can't trip on that banana peel. I would just like scoot up against the wall, walk sideways across it, and then turn and fall straight in. Like, I'm not understanding what the part of throwing the banana in the trash can tells about the character. And I don't think it could like, I can understand that it could tell like, oh, he's conscious about like making sure things are clean or something like that. But that really doesn't tell us anything we need to know in order for the gag, which is him falling in, to pay off. And so then it's kind of unnecessary, an unnecessary story point. So that would be my suggestion with this shot, is just remove him throwing it into the trash, because it's too big of a story point, which doesn't really sell anything. And then I don't like the stand rig. So if I was to rank these overall, I would say this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. But if you address the notes and whatever, I think all 3 can work. But I think the first one is super fun, and I think it would be the best one to do. So do you have any questions on that or anything? Cool. Yeah, hopefully that helps. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, if you have any other questions or anything, feel free to ask. And then let me switch this over. Okay, I'm now going to open up Nikita's shot. I believe she is working on a walk cycle. So let me go here. Downloads. Cool. Okay, let me switch over here. Okay, so we have a basic walk cycle. Let me switch to a front view, or should I say a back view. Oh, Maya decided to close. Whoops, there we go. Try something here real quick, and then I'm going to explain something. So let me switch this over, open up my graph editor, take the rotate Z. Cool, so he goes. Okay, so I'm just going to take this, and I'm going to go times equals -1. And I'm going to go... Ooh, that's not correct. Okay, so this is -4, okay. -2, okay, let's try taking the whole curve, times equals -1. Okay, that's better. Let's see. Okay, that looks way better to me. So, the first note, I'm just going to go over the blocking super quickly, and then I'll go into the splining and show how to spline this walk cycle. But I'm not sure where you're looking at a tutorial for a walk cycle, whatever, but it's kind of taught two different ways. I prefer this way over the other one, and in my opinion, it makes the weight read way better. But I also know other people who teach it the other way. I don't like it, but I'll kind of go over both thought processes. So for me, if this represents your hips, right? This is your hips. If I have all of my weight on this leg, right? This leg right here. This leg is supporting my weight, right? So my hips are over here. This leg is not being supported by anything at all, right? It's hanging and being pulled down by gravity. So if this side of my body is being supported by a leg, but this side of my body is just hanging and actually pulling the other side of my body down, then my hips are going to be like this, because I will have, if I can do a grease pencil real quick, maybe just to draw, I will have this and this happening on my body, because this leg is dragging me down. This pole, which is my supporting leg, is pushing my hip bone upwards. Because if you think about, you know, the hips, your hips are literally this, and then you've got, you know, hip bone here, and then you have a ball on each side, and then you have, you know, your femur. And so if this one's planted and this one's hanging, this one's going to be dragging down, this one's going to be up. So as soon as, so like that's what my philosophy is. So like the longer and the more this leg supports, the lower this leg is going to drop until contact here. So right here, this is whenever it contacts, and then boom, you have the weight shift. So now you go from this leg supporting the weight and pushing the leg up, and this leg dragging, to switching to where this leg is now dragging, this leg is pushing the hips up. And the reason, like, so the other philosophy and the way you had it blocked out is, oh, I need to pick my left leg up, right? So I need to lift my hip up, and that's why the leg that's off the ground, the hips are higher, because I'm picking it up off the ground. But to do that, it you can get away with it with a character like this that's just a ball. You can get away with it and there's no ramifications. You try to do that with a character with a full body, and he's going to be like rotating like this just to counter how much you're having to pick the legs up. And then to take it even further, if you're working in VFX with big creatures and dinosaurs and aliens, you're going to find out very, very quickly that the easiest way to give those characters weight is, you know, aside from giving them heavy energy and like making them feel weighty and spacing, it's to switch those hips. Every time the big character will step, those hips or shoulders are going to rotate and they're going to take that weight. And that's how you give a character a ton of weight. So my philosophy is always have the rotation taking the weight instead of lifting the leg, because lifting the leg is going to make it feel incredibly light. So with that said, that's really the only note I have on the blocking part. Everything else I will probably go over in the spline. So let me switch here. Layouts, 2 panes. Front. Back. There we go. Let's just go none. Cool. So the first thing I'm gonna do, yo, is Brandon. What's up? So the first thing I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna do times equals -1, which is just gonna flip the curve. Also, this, the way I do it, has less knee pops too. So let me just watch this through. Boom. Okay, so I'm not understanding the curve here, because if I'm looking at the right foot happening, right? The curve literally just goes from this point and it eases into this point, right? So it goes from tilted right to tilted left in a fairly linear manner. And so if he's taking the opposite step, so he's stepping left foot to right foot, the curve should be doing the same thing. So this one should be here. And now I'm getting a much smoother curve now, right? There's no more pops going on. Yes, Brandon, I'm deathly scared of this walk cycle. But you know what? I'm going to push through and hope that I don't fail. I haven't done a walk cycle, to be honest, and oh, when was the last time I did a legitimate walk cycle? Probably 6 months or a year. Don't understand why the feet go under the ground. Ah, let me check that out here. What is going on here? Let me check. If I zero that out, okay. So this is just a cleanliness thing, Nikita. I will always place my root at the 0 point, right? Okay, so this is at the 0 point, and I'll put this at the 0 point. Everything is at the 0 point right now. And so a little trick, if you're wanting to do a ground plane like this, I'm just going to scale this up just a little bit. Oh, we got something's going on. Okay, I'm just going to delete this real quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a polygon cube, and I'm just going to scale it up to fit the length and the width of this walk cycle. And then I'm going to do a little bit of math. So I'm going to scale this up to 2 just to make it simple. So if this has the width of 2 and the pivot point is halfway between, we know that it's right in between 1 and 1. So if the thing is too wide and it's right in the middle, it means it has 1 above and 1 below. So I can do the ty of -1, and immediately the ground plane is, the top of the ground plane is exactly at the 0 point. So that's a quick little math thing you can do to save yourself time on creating a ground plane that will hit at the 0 point. Let me go to the right view. Cool. So now that we're exactly at the 0 point, I'm just going to go on your feet. You have all your nice key poses. Okay, so let's go through. We'll deal with this in a bit. This is good, this is good, this. Okay, so here I'm going to zero this out. And I'm going to pull it out a little bit this way to keep it straight, right? Boom. Here it's at 0, so it's good. Here I want to zero that out. And then here we're good. So I believe, except for this section, we're good with the foot not popping through the ground. And then I'm just going to quickly do that with this foot. So let's just 0, pull this out a little bit, 0 this out, 0 this out. Oop. Leave that one be for now. And let's go ahead and just copy. Boom. Cool. So we already have a much cleaner walk cycle, and I'm just doing some cleanup stuff right now. So front view, back view, actually. There we go. Let's just watch this a couple more times and go over some things. So another thing I try to do before I start any walk cycle is I try to bring the feet a little bit closer in, right? Because right now the feet are exactly perfectly straight. And as humans, we always curve our feet in a little bit. So we're always walking a little bit enclave or a little bit out, right? We never walk perfectly straight 90-degree angles between our hips. If we're heavy, like it's kind of a trait of, are you a really skinny person or are you a really heavy person? Heavy people, the heavier they get, the wider their feet will be, and the wider their feet will turn out. That's why you kind of get this kind of like waddle behavior. Skinny people will walk very close in, and then you have your typical like runway walk or model walk like that, where it's super in and they're like tracking foot over foot. That's considered to be more of a feminine trait, and it comes from different hips and like doing that kind of tracking. So what I would do for a vanilla walk, which is what you're kind of doing, is I would just slightly pull them in. That way you're not showing a character that's too heavy or a character that's too light. I would try to just pull it in maybe to 0.1, right? Let's just go with 0.1. And then for the other foot, let's just go with 0.1. Oh, so it needs to be -0.1. Cool. Cool. So that's already looking more appealing, because instead of his legs being straight up, they're kind of curved inwards, which I think looks nicer. And then let's go ahead and take the rotate Y, I think. Yes. So the other thing I'm going to do is probably 0.1 as well, is I'm just going to rotate the feet out just a little bit overall. So let's find a good pose here of like 5. Okay, let's just do 2. do 2. Cool. And then let's go here, and then let's do rotation of -2. Cool. Cool. So now the way I'm going to spline this, Nikita, is I'm just going to start with the center of gravity, which is the ball here, this, and I'm going to make sure this is doing what it needs to, and then I'm going to go into the feet and make sure the feet is doing what it needs to. So I'm going to start with the translate Y, and then I'm going to go to the translate X, and then translate Z should be linear because this is a walk in place, and then I'm going to go to the rotates. So we're going to start with a right view. Cool. Okay, so you know your typical poses. You have your contact, you have your down, you have your passing, you have your up, you have your contact, down, passing, up, contact, contact, down. Cool. Contact, down, passing, up. Contact, down, passing, up, contact, down, passing. Okay, so right now, I think you're good with your contact, down, passing, up, contact. I think this is just my personal opinion. For a vanilla walk, your TY should be a little more flat than this because the more up and down you have, the more personality you have in your walk and the more knee pops you're going to have. So if I lower this ever so slightly, I'm going to have way less knee pops in my life, and it's going to make everything simpler. And then the same with these down poses. I'm just going to pull them up a little bit, and then I'm going to turn this last frame to linear. That way it linearly goes from here to here, which is what we need. So we have a walk a little more like that. So for now, I'm going to say the TY is good. So now we have the TX. This is important. So let's go to the back view. So basically what your hips are doing when they're swaying left to right is it's switching from this extreme, which is your passing pose, to this extreme, which is your passing pose, right? Because at this point in time, your body is only being supported by this leg, and so you need to stay in balance, right? Because if I'm standing on one leg, right? If I'm standing on one leg, that leg needs to be perfectly in line with this piece of my neck, right? Because if it's not, I'm going to be out of balance and I'm going to fall over. So we can't know for sure where Bali's center point is if he had a neck, but we can guess from his sphere that it's probably in the center of the sphere. So I'm going to pull him over just a little bit to say, let's what is this? 0.35. 0.35. And then I'm going to take this point and I'm going to say negative 0.35. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it ease from this pose to this pose. Because like right here, he shouldn't be moving left yet because his right foot hasn't planted yet. So I'm going to pull it back over this way. So it's like, that's when it starts to hit. So I'm going to keep it here. And then it swings over, right? Hangs. Still needs to hang here. And then it swings over, right? So if I'm looking at this is my passing pose. If I'm at 0.165, I should be at negative 0.165 here. So the key before, if I'm negative 0.223, I should be positive 0.223 here. So 0.223, boom. And then I'm going to flip these to linear again. So here, now I have this nice left to right swing with my walk cycle, which is what I should have. But it's a little too much, so I'm going to take this curve and I'm going to go times equals 0.7, and I'm going to scale it down to 70%. And I'm like, still a little bit too big. So let's do times equals 0.7 again. Cool. That's that. I'm going to call this good enough for now on the TX. So now we have the rotate Z, and then I'm going to get into rotate Y and why we need rotate Y here. So right now he's planted on this foot. He's about to switch over to this foot. So this pose is good. As he switches over to here, this should be more, and it should ease more this way. So it should be more like whoosh. So it's like he's planted on this back foot. The front foot is just planting, so he's about to switch his weight over. And so I'm thinking like, okay, the foot's planted, so his hips should already be rotating this way, right? So they go from rotated this way. Now he's planted on this foot, so the hips should already be rotating. And they still need to rotate. And they need to ease. And now we're at the same pose here and here. It's just opposites, right? And so if it's opposites, then if I know I like this one, this is at 4, this one needs to be at -4, right? So here, and so if 1, 2, 3 frames later, 1, 2, 3 frames. Okay, so if this is at 4 and this is at let's say -0.5, then if this is at -4, then this needs to be at +0.5. And then if this one is at -3.1, then this one should be at +3.1. And then I can delete this key. There we go. So now we have this nice doosh, 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 doosh. And it feels like every time he plants his foot, his hips are reacting to the foot placements, which is what gives the character weight. And so now we need to add in rotate Y, which I'm going to do from probably a top view, right? Nope, I am not going to do it from a top view. I'll do it from a side view. Right view. Let's go. Okay, so what's happening here when he's walking is what should be happening is as he swings his right foot forward, his hips should be driving that. So your hips rotate this way and the right foot comes forward. And so your hips should be doing this in rotate Y as we walk, right? So your contact frame here should be like, I'd say this, which means I'm going to have to slide that front foot forward, sorry. But again, that's the nice thing for me about a walk in place is now I don't have to change all of them. I can just change one. So let's say, okay, rotate Y of 8.5. And again, as you're noticing with this walk cycle, I try to make sure everything has simple numbers. That way I can do it the inverse to the opposite. So if this contact frame has a rotate Y of 8.5, well then this contact frame can have a rotate Y of -8.5. Boom. And so now this contact frame can have a rotate Y of -8.5. And now what I do is I just ease, let's just ease these two up And let's just ease these two down. And now I have a nice rotate Y in the torso. And I also like to add a little rotate X in there as well, because as you're walking, your head is or nose is going to be overlapping slightly. So the concept is, which I'll get into rotating X later, because the rotate X is not going to change a ton of what the legs do. It will do a little bit. So you know what, let's just go ahead and do it. Let's do it. It's just a little different than Bali setup. So essentially your overlap is going to be driven by the TY. So if my character goes up, right, you're going to drag, and then as you come down, your nose is going to drag upwards. So his body is coming down right now. So his nose would be dragging upwards. And then he starts to come down. His nose would start to drag down because he's coming upwards. So I'm going to drag the nose down. And then again, as he comes down, let's do this in a absolute view. Nope, never mind. As he comes down, his nose is going to drag up. And then as he comes up, his nose is going to drag down. So let's go ahead and take RY. Let's just copy these values. So let's say this is a value of, well, that's a little tiny little value. Let's say, yeah, let's do a value of 2.5. And so every time we have a down pose, he should have a value of 2.5. And then here, let's just go negative 2.5. So every time he has an up pose, we have negative 2.5. So now you see we have, when his body translates up, his nose comes down. When his body translates down, his nose comes up. But then you get this really weird effect of his nose almost staying in place and his rotations just countering what his translations do. So that's why whenever I do that, I then offset everything by a frame. So I'm going to copy this curve. And now I'm going to offset it by 2 frames. There we go, that's good. And now I'm going to set a key on the first frame, set a key on the last frame, and then delete everything. And then I'm going to set these 2 keys to linear. So now I have something that cycles because, oops, I undocked that. Didn't mean to. Let me make sure these are the same. We have negative 1.852, negative 1.852. There we go. Negative. There we go. Now it should be perfect. Okay, cool. So now we have some nice RX in there, and it's just offset what the TY is doing in rotation by 2 frames. So now that that's good, let me check it from the front view. Cool. He's got this nice side-to-side action. Cool. Now I'm going to move on to the feet. So I'm going to take the right foot first. Okay, so we've got some problems here, possibly. Okay, so the problem here that you're running into of this, which is why the foot is coming through the floor, Nikita, is because you have foot roll, which moves the foot away from here, which is where the foot should be rolling from, and now you're rotating from that point. If the foot roll is at 0, then the foot rotates where it needs to, okay? So that's why whenever we do walk cycles, we have to 0 out our foot roll over one frame and go into translations. So I'm going to 0 out the rotations on this frame. 0 out the rotations, 0 out the translations, and let's see what we have. Let's go ahead and, what is toe roll? Oh, we have toe roll too. Why is there toe roll when there's foot roll? Because it's, okay. Foot brake needs to be on 40, okay. So I'm gonna retroactively, before I go into this, because this is gonna be a little more confusing, I'm gonna open up a new version of Maya, open up your blocking, and I'm gonna repose your feet for you because this is gonna make your life 10 times more simple. And it would be way easier to correct in blocking than it would be in spline. And I think it'll be clearer for you if I do this in blocking instead of spline. So let me open this up. Here we go. Here's your keys version. Okay, cool. Okay, so you have your contact. Let me open up Animbot real quick. I always forget. There we go. Turn that off, turn that off. Cool, okay. So you have your contact pose, your down pose, passing, up, contact, cool. So your problem is that you're countering toe roll, foot roll, and translate Y to get this pose, when in actuality you need to be using the least amount of attributes you can to get these poses, because it's going to make your life simpler in spline. So if I 0 out the TY, 0 out the foot roll, 0 out the toe roll, and put your foot brake back to its default, which is 40, which if anybody doesn't know what the foot brake does, it's very, very important. Okay, let me go ahead and reset that so I can show. Okay. Foot brake decides where your toe is going to bend from. So right now it's at 40-degree angle. So once foot roll gets to 40, the entire foot starts to pivot from the toe. So up until it gets to 40, it's pivoting from this point. So it's essentially what's happening is it's pivoting up into a certain point, and then it's pivoting from this place after that. And so if I set foot brake to 60, I can rotate from this first joint up until foot roll gets to 60. And then once it gets to 60, it'll pivot from the toe. So if I set foot brake to 10, I can only rotate foot roll to 10 at the first joint before it gets to the second joint. So more often than not, your default is going to be 40 because that's a nice number. So I'm going to set this back to how you had it of, what is it, negative 1.4 or something like that. And then I'm going to turn your foot roll up. I'm going to pull it back a little bit, this a little bit. Let's say negative 1.4. Boom. And then let's just do a little foot roll. There you go. So now, instead of using translates, foot roll, toe roll, foot brake, I'm just using translate Z to get it in its place, and then putting foot roll to get that nice pose. And then I'm going to just middle mouse drag and hit S to copy that over to this frame. Cool. And so then for this frame, rather than using translates, rotates, and foot roll, again, set this back to 40. Let's zero all of this out. Let's zero this out. That's at 1.4, so let's put this at -2, okay? I can do this kind of a foot roll, right? But it shouldn't really be bending from that first joint, right? Because right now, all the weight's on the front foot. And so there's nothing pushing the foot down enough. Like, if my hand was the foot, unless I have weight pushing to bend that first joint, it should be more straight. So the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to take, I've got the foot at about the place I want it for a down pose. So I'm going to take the foot brake and I'm going to make it more straight. Something like maybe that. Boom. I don't really like that a lot, so I'm going to give a little more foot brake. You know, let's just leave it at 40 for now, and then I'll do that later. Okay, that's about good. Boom, 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 boom. 0, 0, rotations. Rotations. No rotations, cool. Okay, cool. So that's my philosophy for posing out the feet. So with that said, that's what I'm going to do in the spline version, just a little bit quicker so I can move on to the rest of the walk cycle. But let's see. So we have our contact pose here. So I'm going to put this at 40. Okay, so contact down. Let's put this back at 40. Contact down. Passing is good. Up pose is fine for now. And then this one, can we get this front leg a little bit straighter? There we go. And now again, I'm just going to middle mouse drag this here. Delete this here. Cool. So now we have much cleaner motion with the foot, and now we just have to clean up this section here, where it's switching from only using foot roll to only using rotations, right? We just have to switch between those two. So I have a way that I do it that's a little more advanced for more beginner people. I would just key it on one. So on this frame, we're using only foot roll. On the next frame, we're only using rotations, right? And I'm just gonna match this up just by framing back and forth. So I'm gonna rotate, translate, and I can even do a motion trail here so I can see where my foot is and try to get it to match up spacing wise. And the other thing to make sure you remember is if you're talking about tangents, setting your foot roll and foot brake, the frame before you switch it to 0, set these to linear so that your keys don't, your spacing doesn't ease up into this. So I'm going to place this here, place this here. Place this forward a little bit, just so I get this nice spacing that's working. There we go. Because you need to have ease ins and ease outs, right? So you need to have smaller spacing that gradually gets bigger and then gets smaller again, which this isn't perfect, but it's workable for now. Boom. Okay, and now we need to clean up the up pose, which I talked about earlier, which I didn't know how much to tone it down. when I was just working on that because I hadn't gone over the feet yet, which I probably should have done, but you know, back and forth, back and forth. The up poses are just way too high. If I look at a normal, let's see, let me look up this real quick. Okay, if I'm referencing the Richard Williams walk cycle, his up pose, the foot's, his hips are a little bit up, on his tippy toes a little bit, but it just doesn't, it just feels too much to me on this Bali rig. I've always personally felt that the less up and down in the TY for a vanilla walk is better. And I think especially for a Bali rig, it's a little different when you have a human and you have this entire torso to counterbalance this big up and down. For me, this just feels better. And it also allows you to keep this foot way, way, way lower on the ground during the up pose, because I don't think you need this big, massive foot roll as the torso goes super, super high. Here, 0 out, 0 out. I need to clean, 0 this out. Zero the toe roll out, 0 the rotations, and use foot roll and put the foot brake at 40, like I was talking about with how we pose this out. Okay, cool. Cool. So the right foot's already working way better. I could go manually through the process of doing the left foot. I think what I'm going to do is simply just copying this animation. Again, if you're a student, you should 100% animate each foot individually. For me, I'm doing this as a demo to just show my splining process, which again, it's taking a little longer because I didn't start this shot. I'm just working on this shot that I got sent to me. And so I'm just going to do a quicker way of copying over the foot and offsetting it. Okay, so boom, boom, boom. There we go. Okay, so this ends at frame 25. So let's go 24. Boom. Okay, so let's say theoretically we animated both feet. This is working a lot better. Now we just need to start refining things and cleaning up knee pops. Let me look at this from the back view. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, another issue that I'm seeing. The pull vectors are way too close. For me personally, I like to pull them far enough out that they don't come behind the legs. So I'm going to just pull them out there. And there we go. That's good enough for now. Once I get into the front view, not front view, I guess it's back view. I'm going to animate them, but as of now, since I got this shot, nothing in the front has really been animated, so I made sure the ball is doing what it does because it's going to affect the side, but I probably won't get into the front tonight. I may save that for next time if you're still working on this walk assignment. So I'm going to focus on the side because that's what you animated, and then if I have time, I'll focus on the front. If not, we can do that another time. So let me make sure I get rid of these extra things, and cool. Cool. So the way I'm going to go about cleaning up knee pops is, let me see, what do we have in our selection to work with? Can I track geo? Okay, cool. So I'm just going to track the knee. But before I track the knee, honestly, I should track the base of the foot. So for those who don't have Animbot, probably the easiest way to do this is create a locator. There we are. There's the locator. Show, turn on locators. I'm just going to shift select the foot plane, modify, match all transforms, scale it down a little bit. And I'm just going to place it right at the heel, right? And the heel is what I'm going to be tracking. So I'm going to select this first, then the foot control, constrain, parent, and then I'm going to set a key on it on frame 1, turn blend parent on, and set a key again. And then I'm going to set a key at the end. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to motion trail it. So I'm going to use Animbot's motion trail, but you can use Maya's motion trail as well. And it should track perfectly fine. But I forgot that, okay, it doesn't follow that way with this rig. Okay, so the other way that I'm going to do it then is the way I'm going to track the heel is I am not going to constrain it to that little thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create locator. I'm going to select a vertice on the foot as the parent. So let's just select this vertice here right on the heel. I'm going to shift select the locator. I'm going to go to constrain, point on poly, maintain offset will be turned off. I will constrain, maintain offset should be turned off. So why is it not snapping to? What? Okay, let's try this with a cube or something, because this should be working. Beautiful. Of course it's not going to work when I'm trying to do a demo. Create. Cube. Parent. Child. Constrain. Point on poly. And nothing. Turn on blend parent. Nothing. Okay. Well, this isn't working. Cool. Okay, alternate way. Locator, modify, match all transforms, place it here, parent this little flat thing, child this thing, constrain, parent, set a key, turn blend parent on, set a key on the last frame, and either Maya motion trail it or Animbot motion trail it. If you have Animbot, for me, the easiest way to do this is just create a motion trail on this thing here and then offset it, but this works as well. So you can see that we do not have the cleanest curves. So that's the next point is going in and making sure these are nice and clean. So we have the one frame switch here. Foot roll higher so we get a cleaner curve, right? Using foot roll to clean this up for now. One frame switch. Okay, so now that I can see, I'm like, okay, well, this is a big pop because you have this small spacing and then big. So I'm gonna move this here. Move this up a little bit. Maybe set a key here. Translate this up a little bit. No. Use a little bit of foot. No. Let's get this. Translate this here. And then making sure the spacing between this frame and this frame is not smaller than this frame and this frame. So, because we don't want to ease into that. To get the spacing working, I'm going to translate this last frame of the foot, and then I'm going to just put, because now that I'm in spline, I'm going to put a little bit of toe roll in here and just kind of hardball it in. And I also don't know why this rig does not have the toe on the ground. It's very, very odd. So I'm just going to hardball this in here. It's a very odd rig. Okay, let me look at the rotations. It's fine, it's fine. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Cool. So now, again, just to not have to do things twice, I use screen marker to track arcs. Yes, that works too, Animation Addict. Screen markers, blue pencil, grease pencil, yeah, all of those work perfectly fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just quickly copy this animation over, frame 50. To the other foot. Copy. So I need to make sure. Let's go ahead and just delete this. It's a 24 frame walk, should be frame 12, cool. And paste. And then I'm going to paste, select all of this. Cool. So now that I've refined the feet a little bit more, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to refine the body, rotations, translations, whatever I need to do to make sure that these knees do not have massive pops like this. So I'm going to go to right view and I'm going to see, okay, how can I clean these up? Because for a walk cycle, that is a forward walking walk cycle, the knees should never move backwards. But for an in-place walk cycle, it's a little trickier than that. So forward, back, boom, boom. So let's just see what we can do. So I'm probably going to use, to start out with, mainly foot roll to try to foot roll, make sure I don't get any hyperextension. The backward movement of the feet confuses me a lot. So, oh, that's something I totally forgot. Thank you for reminding me. For a walk, for an in-place walk cycle, the way that it should work is as soon as your foot touches the ground, the movement from here until here should be perfectly linear. So you can delete all the keys and make this perfectly linear. That's the only way you're ever going to make an in-place walk cycle walk forward. So anytime your foot touches the ground until it leaves the ground, which this is the frame before it leaves the ground here, this should be perfectly linear. And the same with the translate Z of this foot. So the second it touches the ground here till it leaves the ground here, delete these keys, make these linear. Boom. And I'm going to go ahead and insert a key here, insert a key here, boom, boom, just to simplify. Cool. And if it confuses you, what you can do, I don't know the trick. I know it for the other way, but I don't know it for this way. Okay, so what I'm going to start out doing, cleaning up knee pops. So I'm going to take the foot roll. For this leg. Okay, this leg. Here we go. Foot roll, foot roll, foot roll. Cool. And I'm just going to start using it to keep the knee from hyperextending. So here, I'm just trying to get, like, you know, your ease in. So, right, so the spacing here is big. I want the spacing to ease. I want it to stay going left. Boom, 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 boom. And cool. There we go. We have this. We have a massive pop. And then this needs to be here. And that's another point is for walk cycles, I like to have one frame. So contact, the next frame flat, right? I don't like to have like 1, 2, 3, 4 frames. I like to have one frame contact, the next frame, the foot is flat on the ground. And so that, sorry, I got distracted there for a second. That's how I like to do my contacts for vanilla walks with the foot roll. One frame contact, the next frame, the foot is flat on the ground. Maybe 2 frames sometimes, but most of the time I like to just have it one frame here, one frame here. And you know what, let's just go and try 2, maybe. Yeah, that works better. 2 frames is better for now. This foot is coming too high. Let's rotate this. So what I'm looking at right now is the spacing here is just way too big. It's causing this big knee pop. And it's not correct to what the ankle should be doing. So I'm going to change the spacing of this foot. There we go. That's more like it. Because if I was to draw the arc that a foot should make, is if you were to look at reference, the arc of the heel would be, can I show my grease pencil? Something along the lines of that. That's the kind of an arc that a foot will make in a forward moving walk. Now this is a straight walk, so it's going to be a little more skewed like this, kind of like I have here, but it is going to look more like this because the foot's going to rotate and the heel's going to slow down, and then it's going to plant there. So just keep that in mind. Another rule of thumb for a walk cycle: try to do every walk trying to make the feet as close to the ground as you possibly can through the entire shot. So here, personally, I would put the foot a little bit lower like this maybe, and just throughout the entire shot trying to make the foot as close to the ground as possible. Because if you think about it as humans, when you walk, you trip on an extension cord. Sometimes you trip on a crack in the concrete. No matter what it is, as long as it's a little bit higher than this, we trip on it. Because as humans, we're lazy and we walk with our feet very close to the ground. So my goal doing walk cycles, unless it's a super personality walk cycle, is to try to get the feet as close to the ground as possible at all times. This is the one with the foot. Yes, it is. So let me now take a look at the knees and see if we have any unnecessary pops that I can get rid of super quick here, because we're running out of time. So let me just go ahead and hide this foot, because there's no reason to see it right now. Cool. So once I've gotten rid of all the normal knee pops, like with this and with this, I can go through and I can nitpick the rotations to get the little tiny knee pops out of the knee, or I can just use leg stretch. Personally, I would probably use leg stretch, but since this character doesn't seem to have it, I can try playing with rotate Y and rotate Z to get rid of my knee pops. So here, no. I wish there was a leg stretch on this. No leg stretch. Maybe I can do a little bit of a TY workaround on this thing. And just boom. Let's put a little more foot roll. Let's bring the TY down just a little bit. There we go. That might not look good though. Nope, that's terrible. Let's get rid of these two. Let's go ahead and copy this. 0.1, 0.1. Ah, hehehe. I forgot to switch this to -0.1 after I copied it. There we go. Nope, that was incorrect. This one needs to be switched to -0.1. There we go. Cool. So I need to copy this over to the red foot again because now the red foot's popping all over the place. Paste, and then paste, cool, '24. Is this correct? There we go. So as you can see, like, this is the quick and dirty way, which I also need to take the TX and turn it to 0.1. Cool. So this is the way, long story short, is a complicated process, get lost in it. Any tips to make it simple? Yeah, so the way that I make it simple essentially is start with your base and move outwards, right? So I know there was a lot that I packed in here, and I feel bad because I feel like I was making this a little more advanced because I haven't animated a walk cycle in so long. I forget what it's like to not know certain things and not know polishing and just be starting animation and trying to figure stuff out. So I apologize if I was going a little too quick or a little too advanced workflows with this walk cycle. But essentially what it comes down to is if your ball isn't working, if the ball of Bali isn't working, it doesn't matter what you do to these feet, your walk cycle will not be working. So in order to keep it simple, make this perfect first. If this is perfect, then these will be able to be a lot easier to be perfect. And I could go a lot more time in and fix the pop because I'm still getting a pop. If you look at the front knee, there's still a little bit of a pop here, which I could easily cover up with some stretch, and that's the way I would normally do it because it's way too time intensive to push and pull here, there. Just to get that little pop out, it would be way easier just to do a little stretch in the knees. But make sure your ball is correct. If the TY is correct, TY is probably the most important in my mind. That's what I start out with a walk. Once you get the TY correct, then you move to the TX, side to side. Once you get the side to side correct, then work on the rotation this way, then work on the rotation this way, then work on the rotation this way. Once you get all of those correct, you get all of those working nicely, then move to your feet. And start with your key poses. Make your key poses simple with simple attributes, like I was saying. You know, contact, down, passing, up. Make sure your feet are as low to the ground as you possibly can. And then once you've done that, start tracking your arcs in the feet. Start working on areas where you're switching from rotation, from foot roll to rotations. Make sure you key that from foot roll to rotation in one frame. Then track your ankle or your heel. Make sure your arcs are clean as your foot comes off and goes over, right? Then once you get done with your feet and you make sure your feet are super clean, then move on to your knees and clean up your knee pops. For me, the most important thing about splining and polishing, and it gets so complicated, is start with your base and move upwards, the same way you'd build a house. You start with the foundation, then you start with the shell, and then you start with the walls, and then you put the furniture in, and you decorate, and all those kinds of things. If you try to decorate before the frame is up, you're probably going to bust all your decorations, right? So if you try to clean up meat pops before your feet are done, you're going to destroy all of your work when you go and fix the feet. So for me, polishing, splining, all of that, aside from it just being an eye thing that it takes time to learn and figure out what is good and what is not, which takes practice, it's just remembering what to do first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So make a list, you know. You're always going to start with the body, especially when you get into more complicated characters. Start with the cog, the center of gravity. Move to the torso, move to the neck, then the head. You don't want to do the head before the torso because if the torso's not working, your head probably is not going to work. So cog, torso, neck, head, then you're going to go to the shoulders, then you're going to go to the arms, then you're going to go to the feet, then you're going to go to the knees, and then I probably make a secondary pass over everything, right? So that's the way I would suggest doing it. Again, I apologize if I'm going a little too fast with this, but yes, that is correct as well. So another thing, which is, again, is why I'm having issues with pops, is a lot of schools, even AM, says, don't worry about the front view. I disagree with that. I say, do the front view and the side view. Yes, is it more work? Yes. But it eliminates problems because right now I'm having issue with knee pops. And one of the reasons I'm having an issue with the knee pop is because there's no TX right now, which changes, as you can see, what happens to the knee. And so what should be happening here is as he picks up the foot, the knee's going to come inwards like this. The foot's going to rotate like this. So if I just look at the TX, rotates, there you go. Rotate, TX, boom. It's going to rotate in like this, and then it's going to come out here, boom. So this is obviously not great. I would put a lot more time into this. But more than not, roughly this is going to be the posing you get on your passing pose. Yes, exactly, AJ. I agree 100%. I totally agree that, you know, again, like I was saying, is I disagree with a lot of animation schools that say don't worry about the front view, because without the front view, your side view is not going to be perfect. So, will you upload this demo to your YouTube channel? Yes, yes, I will. As soon as the stream's over, it's going to upload to Twitch, so you can rewatch it on Twitch, and then we're going to send it over to YouTube as well. So, but yeah, from the front view, you're going to come in like this. As you come to your contact, you're going to come back out, and then vice versa. So your feet are essentially, if this is your walking, right, instead of just doing like this and walking on a straight line, you're pulling off, coming in, and then back out. So you're walking like this, not on a straight line, but on a curve, right? So keep that in mind as you move forward and try to implement that in, because it will change where your knee is, and it will eliminate or cause different knee pops depending on how much you've done with your knees. So do you have any other questions or anything on that? What's the question? Yes, I can explain the hip rotations. So essentially, the way it works, let me just try to stand up and show it. So if I'm standing here, right, both of my legs are supporting my hips, which we can think about my hips as just a bar, right? Like this line of my shirt shows my hips. If I lift the left leg, right, so I'm standing on this leg, right? This leg is supporting this hip. This leg is dragging, right? So now I'm at this angle, right? This leg is dropping because it's off the ground, right? This leg is off the ground, so it's dropping. Then whenever I plant this one, my hips switch from this side to this side, right? Because now this leg is off the ground. This leg is pulling my hips down, and this leg is pushing my hips upwards, right? That's why if you see someone who's standing like this, when they sway side to side, their hips rotate from here to here based on which leg they're standing over. Your hips are going to rotate from here to here to here, right? So the same is going to happen with your walk cycle. If this leg is planted on the ground, it's going to push the hips this way, right? Because this leg is fighting against gravity and it's pulling the hips downwards, right? It's off the ground. Your legs are very heavy, right? Let's say your legs weigh 50 pounds. Let's say each leg weighs 50 pounds. So if this leg isn't on the ground, that's 50 pounds on the on the right side of his body, pulling his hips down. While the other side, this leg is touching the ground, so it's pushing his hips upwards. So now whenever this foot plants on the ground, passing pose RZ is down, TX is shifted over the supporting leg, contact pose RY is max, RX is couple frames behind the TY. Yes, exactly. And then as this as you switch over from this side to this side, now this foot is supporting the hips, so it's rotated this way, and this leg is off the ground, so that's, you know, say 50 pounds, pulling down this side of the hips. So hopefully that explains it, Nikita. Cool. Yeah. So, does anyone have any last minute questions before I call it? I was not expecting to go this long. I was like, today will probably be a short stream, but it kind of surprised me. It was kind of cool. I was able to go for 2 hours and I had fun. So, thank you guys for showing your stuff and letting me take a look at your shots and go over it. Hopefully I said some helpful things. Hopefully it helped out. I mean, if nothing else, you got to see how my process goes for animating walk cycles relatively. I block a little bit different than this because I'm more of a feel animator. So I already have the idea of the poses in my head, and I just kind of block out the motion. But that's a little more of an advanced workflow that I'll hopefully be able to show later on. But hopefully this was interesting for you guys, and if you don't have any other questions, hey, no problem, Alan. Thank you guys, and if you don't have any more questions, I'll probably call it here. Thanks, Alan, Nikita, Sanjana. Trying to think of anybody else. Brandon, Ayub. Thank you guys for chatting in the chat and keeping me company while I did all this. And hopefully you guys will show up to Sins tomorrow. Madison's on Friday. And I believe we have something on Saturday. I'm trying to think. I know we have something really cool next Saturday. I don't know what we have this Saturday, but if I don't see you guys this Saturday, I will see you guys on next Wednesday. So, see you guys around. Cheers.